Alrighty then. Hey, you finding life a little tough? Having a little trouble making ends meet? Having a little trouble keeping that relationship together? Keeping those kids in school and in line? Maybe you're just not that good at it. Let's talk. Oh man, life's tough, isn't it? Life's tough. I look around and I see it every day. I see it in the lives of the people around me. I see some guy hauling butt down the road, and he's got a broken down car, and he's going from point A to point B, and he's about 20 miles over the speed limit. And all I keep thinking is, man, it doesn't look like he's that good at this thing called life. He's just not that good at it. And of course, I don't understand the actual concept in that. I think about myself and I think about, well, there are things that I'm not good at. And the way you can tell when you're not good at things is when you keep doing them and doing them and doing them and you don't get anywhere with them. The podcast is part of that, of course. There is a definite learning curve when it comes to doing this. Be able to conversate with someone to keep someone's attention for like 30 friggin' minutes. And of course, when you look like this, it doesn't help. If I was young, I was a young. Oh yeah, it'd be good. But no, you got to work at it. Have you ever considered that? Think about it. Think about how many things in your life that you struggle with, and of course, then step back and ask yourself, or take an inventory of how many things you've actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do. There's the recipe right there. And the truth is, when you think about things like your relationship or parenting, especially those personal connections, those things where you actually learn it from the world around you, from the people you love, the people you trust, right? Who says your mom and dad knew how to get it done, right? When it comes to their relationship. Yeah, sure, maybe they stayed together, but were they actually as happy as you kind of had a dream of being, right? Are they actually rocking and rolling in their life where they want to be? When you think about your kids, are you good at it? What would be the measure of that? Well, when you tell your kids to do something, they do it. That would be a good thing. When the behavior of your children is in line with the area around them. There's some good news in this, and I know you might think I'm wasting your time, but I promise you I'm not. If you stick around and you spend a little time just thinking about what I'm saying, before you know it, you're going to be able to apply this to anywhere in your life. Because when it comes down to it, when it really comes down to it, it's all about what you're good at. Let's get good at life when we come back. All right, so let's go ahead and break this thing down. Let's break it down now. So if you think about anyone who's ever done anything amazing in their life, anyone, whether it's a like I'm into MMA, Chuck Liddell or George St. Pierre or Gracie's or any of those fighters, and they're definitely a league of their own, right? Right? What do you suppose that is driven by? How do you achieve that type of success? And the answer is simple. You continually do something and you do it and you do it and you do it some more and you continue to do it until at some point, guess what? You are in your zone. You are right where you need to be. You've done it so much and you love it so much that you just excel at it. And part of that is the learning curve. Part of that is the more you do something and examine it, the way you figure out how to do things, how it works, and make it smoother and more streamlined, the better you get. Now, what's cool about that idea is you can apply that concept to any area of your life. And by the time we get done here, you're going to understand how to do that. See, as it turns out, the recipe that you have for accomplishing things is the same recipe you use for everything you've done in your life so far. You have the ability to produce. You do. It's obvious in the fact that you have a house, you have a car, you have kids, you have a job, and you pay your bills, and you're in that zone wherever you are. You have produced that, and without your effort, it wouldn't have happened. But in order for you to do that and be successful at some things require an education. There's some secrets that they're not taught that we aren't naturally born to that make a difference between whether we are successful in any given area and they were not. How about we start with the most important of those? Let's start with your relationship. What could you do in your relationship? What are some key elements, key skills that you need in a great relationship? Maybe, I don't know, maybe listening? Maybe able to sit back and when you start feeling that anger, that frustration to building in you, that angst because you're feeling ashamed, to figure out a way to push it down and say, oh no 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 no, I'm fine. They can be as upset as they want, but I'm fine. Maybe the ability to put someone else first. It's a simple process, but it's hard to accept, and that is your relationship will get better when you make that other person more important than you in the relationship. And there's a couple caveats to that. I mean, being good at a relationship comes down to when you first meet. You're sitting there talking to someone, and granted, they are cuter than hell, but they're completely different than you. You're like, oh, I like to hang out and smoke weed, and I do video games. Well, I like to climb mountains, backpack, and hike, and I like anything outdoors. You got to kind of forego that carnal need sometimes to actually decipher that. And of course, I bet you no one's ever told you that. Think about how easy it is. Let's say you're Johnny or Jimmy Catfish, right? You love catfishing, always loved catfishing, and you run across this girl and she don't like catfishing. Would it make sense for you to drag her in? She's over there. She likes soap operas, but she's cute. No. If you want to spend your entire life fishing as a man or a woman, the best way to do that is to invite someone into your life that actually has that same interest. And I know, oh, that's crazy. Well, it's not. It's about making your life fit. And the reason you didn't do as good a job as you could have isn't because you can. It's because you didn't know how. And of course, if you don't know how to do something, are you going to be good at it? No. Imagine what would happen if all of a sudden you found common ground with the person you share your life with. Something that's exciting, that interests both of you, that you both can sink your teeth into, right? You're like, oh, let's go. Yeah, I wouldn't mind hiking, right? I wouldn't mind. Let's ride our bikes and let's be friends with you. Let's make it fun, right? And of course, it may or may not be fun. But the point is, in your relationship, if you want to get better at and have a better relationship, you got to get better at how you manage your relationship. If your relationship's on the rocks, it's not because it has to be. It's because you just don't know how to do it. Maybe you're not that good at it. Oh, so breaking it down, the steps. Learn as much as you can about you. Be honest with yourself about where you are. That's where it starts, right? That's where our happiness comes from. And I'm not even going to tout the happiness thing. I misspoke on that. Happiness is a fleeting emotion, no different than anger or any other emotion we have. What we tend to do is we tend to replace the term happiness with another term, which is contentment. All right, contentment. But again, we're not supposed to be content either. If we were able to be content, then all the stuff you have in your house and in your garage, you would just get home and there'd be a point when you're like checking off the list. You're like, hey, guess what? What? We friggin' got everything. What? Yeah, we have every friggin' thing we need. Really, we don't have to go back to the store. No, not. That's for groceries, the consumables. But no, I got my car. I love my car. I know everything I need to know about me. I know enough about me to know that this is all the cool stuff I love. That will never happen. Get past it. That's why it's important for you to manage it. Because you're going to come along with, if you're doing it right, there's going to be a lot of change involved. In order for you to get good in any aspect of your life, you have to start by learning how to do it. How do you adapt to change? How do you learn how to adapt to change? What's the best way for you to learn to adapt to change? Well, it's the same way you adapt to challenges, to the unexpected. You experience it, you go through it, you're like, oh man, that sucks. Let's do it again. Oh, that sucks. How do I know this? Well, I've changed. My life has changed. I don't know how many times. I don't know if you know any history on me, but my wife and I, we sold everything. We traveled around the country in an RV for 7 years. I went from a broken nobody working construction to retiring at 54 years old for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. How do you do that? Well, you just have to be willing to face the change. You have to be willing to lean into the pain. And how do you do that? Well, you have to learn how to do it. And that is the ability for you to step forward, examine your life, and figure out where you want to be. There are 3 simple steps to this entire process. 3. And when you get in the habit of producing based on those 3 simple steps, success is almost guaranteed because there's checks and balances that are involved with every bit of it. Every bit of it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about picking it just like you did your car, just like you did your house. Getting excited about it. What does that mean, getting excited about it? That means learning about it, thinking about it, talking about it, sharing that idea with the person you love, keeping it in perspective so it's at the forefront of your thinking. Because what's going to happen when you spend enough time thinking about how great it's going to be debt-free? What do you suppose would be the very next step? It would be to do it. It would be action. And the cool part about it is you don't have to worry about the action because the action will come when the energy's there. When you've decided, when you understand it well enough and you can see it and feel it, all of a sudden you're going to do it. Because what happens then is where you want to be becomes more exciting and more energizing than where you are right now. Right? So in that essence, when we talk about this whole thing not being good at it, reason you're probably not good at it is because number one, you don't realize you're not good at it. And number two, no one's ever stopped to tell you how to fix it. And guess what? We're not even done. So I said earlier that this is about every aspect of your life. You can apply this to every aspect of your life. This is an example of that. I show up here every day and I work on the sound and I work on the lighting and I work on the and there is a lot of effort involved. And the cool part about it is that when you have the right reasons for doing stuff, it's easy to do it. It's easy to struggle through it. And an example of that is my relationship with my wife. See, I found out some time ago, I found out that it was much nicer when my wife looked at me with a smile and was happy to see me and excited when I show up because it makes her life better in some form or another. And of course, that comes from her, right? Not every person wants exactly the same thing. And the ability for me to be a great husband is for me to first look at her and go, I wonder what makes her happy. Here before I did the podcast, I had a little snack and she had a snack and there were two bowls in the sink and there were some spoons there. And then of course there was my morning coffee cup. An example of doing things that actually make her happy was for me to go in there and wash up those dishes. That's 4 items and put them, or 5 items and put them in the rack, let them dry and then wipe the counters down. And then I come in here and I do this. You think she's going to be irritated by that? She'll be like, oh, God dang, he's over there doing my dishes again? I didn't know that. I didn't always know that. Just like I didn't know that the reason I used to be so angry with her was out of shame. She would say things, and of course, if you've been with your partner for a while, there are things you can say that you know will send them through the roof. Through the friggin' roof, right? When she would say those things, what I didn't know was that I don't have to go through the roof. I can still be happy old me despite what she's trying to do in my life, right? I can still be happy me. All I had to do was learn to do it a different way. And so I started saying to myself, when we'd have exchanges and I could hear those things, it started making me feel all ashamed in myself. I just tapped myself, said, no, I'm good. I'm good. I can still be happy even if you're grumpy. And of course, the other side of that was, the other thing that I learned was when you're kind to your partner and they're not being kind to you, it's really hard for them to still be mean to you. When you're being your best self and you're like, oh, no, I got that. Here, let me get the door. Hey, you want me to go to the store for you? Here, I got that. I'll give the kids a bath. Here, I got this. Here, let's do this. Because guess what? Once you do that, you have accountability. Because then you can truthfully say, hey, can you help? Well, I'm doing this. I do this because I love you. I don't care what the recipe is. It doesn't really matter what the recipe is or what causes action on the part of your partner. But the thing is, you don't have to yell about it. You say, I really do this because I love you. I'd really kind of appreciate it if you could reciprocate. I mean, I kind of need some help here. I understand you don't like to mow the lawn. I understand you don't like to do the laundry, but I mean, I don't either. And if we work together, then we could go kayaking or we could go mountain biking or we could go do any of a number of things. Bet you didn't know that. Bet you didn't know that if you love your partner more than yourself in all things, you will never have an issue fighting with them about what you do for them. And remember, no one's ever gotten a divorce because they did too much for the person they love. Maybe you're not good at it. You're about to be when we come back. Now, if you're like most people, you spend the majority of your time at work or away from home. Usually 12 hours a day at least. It's not even 50% because you spend 6 to 8 hours a day sleeping. So the disparity between the time you spend away from home and the time you spend at home is pretty great. I mean, you spend a lot of time either on the road or at work and dealing with people besides the people you love. Are you good at it? What do you do when you're sitting in traffic? You're over there and you're outside Chicago, you're trying to get in and you maybe got out of the house just a little late, 20 minutes late, and all of a sudden now you're stuck in gridlock. If you want to do a gauge, you want to try to figure out if you're good at it. The best way to do that is to think about how you feel the next time you're in that situation. What are you accomplishing as a result of a circumstance that's obviously beyond your control? If the traffic's backed up, traffic's backed up. I mean, and that's the same with everything else in life, right? If you got a job you hate, you're still showing up at that job you hate. So what could you do to actually kind of improve that whole experience? Well, this is where we come back around to that whole idea of what we know, right? The reason you're growling at work isn't because you have to. It's because you're not good enough at work. You don't have the skills to do it any other way. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just imagine for a second that your job sucks. Because let's face it, most people's jobs do suck at some point or the other. Question, what can you do about it? Well, as it is right now, the biggest thing you might want to do or learn to do is to change why you do it. I mean, why are you working? Why do you sit right where you are Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, and do the things you do for the wages you do? Is it because you just love it? It's like, oh, damn, this shit's so cool. No. It's because you have to. Because you got to pay those bills. You see the problem, right? See, this is what you don't know. See, you're not good at it. What you don't realize is that's not a very good reason for you to work. So maybe you might want to consider changing the reason. If you're going to work your ass off, which you will most of your life, and even if I'm retired and I'm still not retired, you see what I'm doing. So there's no sitting still, I guarantee that. But let me just say this again. What could you do to improve that? I don't know. Maybe change the reason? How about you just go ahead and change up something about your life? Maybe get rid of one of the car payments or set your focus sights on going to the lake every weekend all summer long. The boat and everything, beer and everything. Every weekend you're spending one night out at the lake. Sundays you come home, Monday through Friday you work and you do it again. And the reason you do it? Because you love it. Because that's a cool part of your life. That's a lot better than where you are right now, where Fridays and Saturdays or Saturdays and Sundays you're hanging around the house, you're looking at your phone, you did the yard work, not really having any fun at it, not really getting any energy from it. And then, of course, how do you do that? Well, you have to learn something. You have to learn how to do it. How do you do it? You think about going to the lake every day, and you talk to your partner about going to the lake every day, and you talk to your friends at work about how you're going to set it up so you can afford to go to the lake every weekend. And I said every day. Well, okay, if that's your thing. If you want to go fishing, I'd get rid of that damn house. I'd just buy me a houseboat. I spend my time on the water. I mean, can you imagine how much fishing you could do? You get home from work, you're right there on the water. Hey, I'll go fishing. And of course, that's something you'd have to learn to do. And obviously, if you're not doing that and you love fishing, then it's probably because you're not really good at it. We're going to change that when we come back. Now, this is where the boots need to fit. And the reason I say that is because one of the other things that we're not really good at is we're not really good at going off on our own path. If you take a look at your life, if you take a look at all of the things in your life, what you're going to find is that your life is a replication. It's a duplicate of your neighbor's life, your parents' life, your friend's life. Which brings up the good point now, and of course this is something we have to learn. We have to come to accept that is okay. When you look at all of the things you're doing, and according to you, all that work you're going to have to do this next week in order to pay for it, how many of those things are actually delivering to you that boost of energy, that excitement that makes you want to get up early, leaves you laying in bed at night, thinking about how cool it is to wake up and do what you're going to do today, tomorrow, and the next day? Of course, well, no, that's friggin' ridiculous. Well, no, it's actually not. Actually not. When you want to make it fit, that's the big mistake that we keep making. There's nothing wrong with spending money. I think you should spend money. There's nothing wrong with drinking beer. I think you should drink beer if you like beer. If it's not derailing your life, go enjoy it. I think you should go fishing more. But where we get off the tracks is when we adopt a lifestyle and ideas about a lifestyle, and we have this idea, this perception about how friggin' amazing it is. And here's the caveat in it all. This is what's really most telling about the whole thing. You're going to go out on Monday through Friday, and you're going to do that series of things you do every Monday and Friday for 30 years. And if you're really honest with yourself, just take a minute. Is it really the friggin' rock and roll ride that you were hoping for? And chances are, no, if you're honest with yourself, it's like, no. And of course, I can't ask you, are you happy? Because you know where happiness comes from, right? Happiness comes from acceptance. I know people who are happy in their marriage, and yet they don't talk to each other. They're always fighting. They're always arguing. There's always money issues. They never work together. But if you pull up on them and say, hey, so are you happy with your life? Oh, yeah, hell yeah. And what's cool about that is when you say, oh, I'm happy with my life, and you agree to that, then, of course, the good news is you don't have to do shit about it. You don't have to change anything. I'm happy with my wife. Really? And of course, the other issue is, and that's the best you can do, right? The best you can do. If you want to move your life forward, you've got to figure out how to do it. You've got to know how to do that. Just like an MMA fighter, if he wants to be a champion in MMA, he has to figure out how to master those skills to the degree that he's a professional at it. And the sad part of it is, most of us haven't quite figured it out. If you're wondering whether or not you should do it or not, I promise you should. There's nothing better than mastery of self. Nothing better than waking up knowing that within yourself you have the ability to do anything you want to do in life. Is it always great? Is it always amazing by the standards of the world? Probably not. Maybe so. Hell, I don't know. But that doesn't change the fact that it can be amazing within yourself. Let's face it. You're the one that lives with you when you wake up every morning. How does it feel? And if it doesn't feel amazing, I got an idea. Maybe that's because you just haven't learned how to do it so it feels amazing. It's all about you. All about you learning what you don't know. When we come back. No, I know I make it sound easy. But in essence, it really is. It comes down to this. The reason that you are where you are and the reason that you don't find change in your life isn't because it's not possible. It's because you don't spend enough time thinking about any given endeavor in order for you to achieve that. That is the bottom line. The reason you're able to succeed in your life and hold it to a certain standard for years on end is because you've gotten good at repeating those same processes that allow your life to continue forward to that ultimate direction. And that ultimate direction for most of us is to retire and then to go have an amazing life. Which, of course, is another thing that is it's caused not because you don't have another choice. It's the result of us not knowing another way to do it, not being good at it. Now, the way I see it when I look at my life, and I did the same thing as you for a long time, I really did, and I'm kind of ashamed of that because I regret the fact that I didn't realize it sooner. But here's the plan. So the plan is that you work, and you make all kinds of money, and you buy all kinds of stuff, work, and then when you get done with that, then when you're 65 and you've got money in the bank and you have all this crap and your garage is full of crap, and now that's when you start having fun. I'm going to retire. I'm going to go start rock climbing. Yeah, I'm going to start, go-go dancing. I'm going to do all kinds of crazy stuff I've never done. Waited too long. And what happens when you're 65, 68, 70, and you're going to go party? Well, party usually ends about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, if that. You don't really have the stomach for booze anymore. Kind of gives you stomach issues. You're on about 4 or 5 prescriptions. You've been smoking too much all your life, and now, of course, this is when the party's on. You see, you kind of see my point. Now, if you were to learn how to incorporate that amazing adventure into the life you're living now, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Let's say hypothetically, you were able to spend a good portion of your life engaged in activities that are actually things you love to do, like hanging out on the boat or maybe hanging out in the Caribbean or doing something like that. How would you suppose you do it? Well, the first step to doing it is to be able to figure something out that other people aren't doing. Because if you're going to do what other people are doing, which is exactly what most of us do, you're going to get exactly the same outcome. Let's face it, look what you did. You bought the house, you got the debt for the house, you got the debt for the cars, you got the job, you got the yard, you got all the junk, and who does that look like? Now it looks like your neighbor. Looks like your dad, probably looks like your grandpa. Now this is where the scary part comes in. This is where you got to lean into the discomfort. Got to lean into the pain. The pain comes when you take a path that other people don't agree with. They're so far outside the mark on what other people are doing that it makes you uncomfortable and it makes them uncomfortable. I know about that. Sandy and I, like I said, we sold everything, including the house, got rid of all of this stuff in the house in 1 month, and then we bought an RV and we traveled and we hit the road for 7 years. Were we greeted with this amazing, oh, you're so amazing? Yeah, at the onset, but you got to know there are people that were looking at us and behind the scenes when they're sitting there drinking coffee, they're going, he's friggin' nuts. In fact, I had one person tell me, you guys aren't going to make it. This is the dumbest thing ever. Come right out and say it. Yeah, little did he know. And of course, it was destiny when you think about it. Sold our RV. I said we're going to be on the road 7 years. Sold our RV 7 years to the day. That's about self-actualization. That's about knowing yourself well enough and having a good enough plan and having learned how to do things so efficiently that you know exactly where you're going. Not a bad place to be. Let's go ahead and finish this thing up because I'm not quite done. Oh, so that's been a good conversation as far as I'm concerned. Let's talk about you. Here's a couple things you need to know. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you're going to find that I am also on YouTube now. I've been going ahead and doing videos. I'm trying to work on my presence. I'm not trying to be a bully. I just got all these things to say. I've got all this energy, and if I don't expend it, it drives me crazy. And of course, the other thing is this keeps my train on the tracks. When I sit here and I think about what I know and what I don't know, it reaffirms my system and my suspicions and what I've learned in my own life. And that is, I show up here every day because it inspires me, because it energizes me, because in my mind, whether it's true or not, I believe that someone is grabbing a hold of one piece of this or maybe more and is applying it in their life and said, I'm not a good husband. It's not because I don't love her or him, and it's not because I don't want to be. It's just because I don't know how. I'm probably not the best parent. I'm not sure. It's not because I don't love my kids. Maybe it's just because I don't know how when it comes down to it. That's how you fix it, right? And when it gets better, you get that one win. You decide to be kinder, and you do the dishes without being asked, and you get the kids in the bath without being asked, and you start smiling at her and appreciating her and falling back in love with her. That's when you know you're on the right track. When life gets easier and that feeling inside us, that angst, that thing that gnaws on us most of the time, it subsides. All of a sudden you find contentment in appreciating the fact that you're able to continue to grow and to learn. That's the ticket. That's the message I'm sharing. I don't want anything from you. I'm trying to give it to you. Until next time, let me remind you, don't forget to launch every action from a platform of kindness. It'll make your life better, and it'll make the world a better place. We are a lot more alike than we are different. I guarantee it. And success in the world begins one person at a time. Until next time, my name's Chris Jaquez, and this is Your Best Life Defined. Have a wonderful day.